Welcome to EvoBizDevo with Isis Latham, your host, your hub for personal and professional growth since 2018. At EvoBizDevo, we bring together entrepreneurs, business leaders, and change makers to spark ideas, share knowledge, and grow together. Stick with us as we explore fresh ways to expand networks, build resources, and create lasting impact. Let's get started. Welcome to Evolution Business Development. I'm your host, Isis Latham, and it's my pleasure to be able to introduce to you Matt Luensmann. We're going to be talking about finding your gold star new hire. Now, if you know Matt, excuse me, you probably know that he loves helping companies find the employees that will take their business to and beyond where they pictured it going, and connecting candidates with the company that provides everything they're looking for, and then some. But today we're also going to be talking about what is the experience of the recruiter, but what is also the experience of the recruited. So Matt, welcome to Evolution Business Development. How are you doing today?
It's the day before Thanksgiving, Isis. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, we've got a room full of amazing people today who are ready to listen to you. And it's so fun, isn't it, that even when the holidays come along, when we're in business for ourselves, we get to make our own schedule. So we might take a long weekend, we might work right up until the day before the holiday. What do you find in your line of work when you're talking to people about hiring? How do business owners hire in a way that resonates with their way of doing business?
Yeah, I think that's something that every business has to determine for themselves, right? There's a lot of companies that starting last week, they're like, yeah, we'll resume hiring in January because it's, holiday season, right? And people are not looking for jobs or whatever their excuse is, right? Or they're not interested in dealing with it through the holidays. But really, the smartest companies keep hiring. They don't stop. Now is because when you think about it in terms of the candidate perspective, right now is really when the people who are considering making a move are really doing their research. They're really doing their homework on, hey, I'm ready to make a move and I'm ready to do it now. So if you wait till January, the best people likely have already made their move and you've missed them.
Yeah.
So reading the market, like it, and this is the thing, right? We're like, well, it's holiday season, but candidates are still applying. Candidates are still ready to go to work. And more so, especially in this market. I mean, I know people personally who have been out of work for more than a year and they're not stopping applying for jobs and interviewing right now. They're still going. And the best companies that want to take advantage of that are still hiring.
I was on LinkedIn this morning, which I want to get some of your feedback on what you think about LinkedIn as a place for people that are looking to find a position. And there was a response to somebody's post talking about the fact that she was going to be cooking tomorrow, but she at the same time was also going to be researching and seeking a job and putting in the effort. And at first when I saw that, I said, oh man, she's gonna work right through the holiday. And then I thought about it a little bit more and I thought, oh, she's motivated to make a change. She doesn't want to go into the new year experiencing what she has been experiencing up until now. And the holiday was actually giving her an opportunity to be able to have a little white space time, maybe, that she wouldn't normally have because she's got to be really dedicated to her current position so that she can keep the food on the table and the bills paid.
Yeah, 100%. And, on the flip side of that too, is that finding a job, if you don't have one, is a full-time job. And a lot of times it's more than a full-time job. Like can you take time off from looking for a job? Sure. And you have to keep your sanity, especially in this market. But you might work on job search activities for longer than you would your normal full-time job.
How do you feel about the term headhunter?
I don't like it, frankly.
It always seemed like a trophy.
Yeah, it just comes off as kind of aggressive to me, honestly. Like, and I understand the reason people sometimes call recruiters headhunters, right? Especially people who are really focused in that executive space, because they're calling people at their desk at their office where they currently work. And I'm like, well, I'm not that person. Like, I recruit executives, but like, I'm not going to call you at your desk.
So tell us about that. How do you overcome, one, the stereotype, two, the way that it's been done in the industry, and how do you do it differently?
Yeah, so it's a lot about the verbiage that you use, right? I think starting there, because there are people who are more in that headhunter role, but that's not where the vast majority of recruiters fall. The vast majority of recruiters would not, you would look and be like, oh, you're a headhunter. No, I go find people who are looking for a job and who are open to it. And you kind of court them. It's like dating almost, right? Which is kind of a interesting correlation. But I'm very much email, text message, LinkedIn outreach, because I remember 7 years ago when I started out in this industry, and I was making phone calls, and I don't really call people now unless we have a time on the calendar and they've agreed to chat with me. But I remember calling people 7 years ago, and they'd step out of meetings and say, hey, I'm in a meeting, what do you need? And I'm like, so if you'll answer my phone call in the middle of a meeting,
Yeah.
what's to stop you from responding to a text message in the middle of a meeting? Almost a ton of people have those smartwatches now, right? Of any shape or size. They got a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, an Android watch, what have you, and they get all of their notifications on their watch. So I can text you and say, hey, I just sent you an email about this job, check it out and let me know if you're interested. And my response rate and the time for them to respond goes through the roof, because it's really that second touch point. But long-winded answer, I think it's really going back to how do you position yourself in the space that you're in, right? Because I'm not a headhunter. I don't view myself as such, and I don't want people to look at me that way, because I'm not that super aggressive person that's gonna, essentially stalk a candidate that I really like. Nah, I'm gonna reach out to you 5 or 6 times, say, look, I want you for this. If you're not interested or now's not a good time, let me know. But I'm not gonna hunt you down until you talk to me, because there's too many good candidates in the market for me to chase somebody for so long.
I like that. So candidates, be warned, you won't go more than 5 times. But I say that and I'm laughing, but I think that it's really good also because it speaks to me about the culture that you're creating from the very start. And so let's talk about that. You must have some pretty strong beliefs around business, entrepreneurship, management, leadership, all of these different areas in order to have even shared what you've shared so far. So why this line of work, if you would tell us that?
Yeah, my heartbeat for almost as long as I can remember has been to help people. And so when I first graduated school, gosh, 10 years ago already, that's a long time ago, I was in sales, and I found all of these terrible companies in a row. And, the underhanded kind that they're like, here, tell them this. And, here's this perfect script. And if you do it just right and answer all their questions, then they're going to buy our crappy product and we're going to pay you. And I was like, no, that's not me. That it was too slimy. And so I started looking for something that was less salesy, right? And I was like, oh, I could be a recruiter. And as luck would have it, like 6 months later, a large agency called me and they're like, how do you feel about being a recruiter? And I was like, actually, that sounds awesome. And so when I stop and look at what are the things that you can do that really truly impact someone's life for the better, finding them a better job or a job is one of the top 5 things that I feel that I can do to completely change someone's life. And that could be taking them from unemployed to employed, or from underemployed to employed, or, out of a terrible situation into a better one. And now that I'm on my own, it's really twofold, right? Because now I'm truly serving my client. And it's really that matchmaking of, hey, I'm like the dating coach guru almost, right? But for candidates and companies, of like, who is the best long-term fit for this company, who is really desiring to work in the culture that they're creating, who's catching that vision for what the company is trying to accomplish, and matching them together.
So that brings me to something that I was wanting to ask earlier, and I'm glad I waited, because it sounds like you've talked a little bit about establishing interview processes, scoreboards for each role, writing job descriptions. You're more involved, right, than just being the matchmaker. You're actually helping the company to become a more resilient workplace for this new recruit. Am I correct in that?
100%, Isis, because a lot of the times what's going on in the market is, companies have an opening and they're like, hey, we need and I use this example all the time. And I think I used it probably with Joe and Isis. I might've used it with you when we met too, but it's like, we have an opening and they're like, we need a software engineer. Great. How many years of experience do they need? 10. Why? I don't know. It sounds like a good number. Well, you're already off in the wrong direction. Because the vast majority of the time, what happens is companies think they know what they need, but they haven't looked at it from the right perspective of, wait, in 3 months or 6 months, when we do this employees review, what are they supposed to have been doing in that time frame? Because a lot of times job descriptions are like, well, we need this person, but why? What are you expecting them to accomplish? What are you going to hold them responsible for? And write it from that perspective. So that's the first thing, because a lot of times they start off in left field to begin with, which is why it takes them 4 to 6 months to find who they want, because every 4 to 6 weeks, they're readjusting their aim because they realized, oh, wait, nope, that's not who we need. So I truly partner with them so that from the jump, we're pointed in the right direction. Because look, I can find you the wrong people all day long, but that's not benefiting anyone. I talked to a lady a few weeks ago and she said her last job before she went the entrepreneurship route, 2 weeks in, the employer completely changed the skill set that she was supposed to have. This was after he hired her and she started and worked for him for 2 weeks. It's like,
Hear it too, because
dude,
my work brings me to that individual, right? The family, the entrepreneur, the business owner, all of those people. And when I talk with employees, there is this frustration in their roles, in their experience. And you're absolutely right. I can literally recall a specific conversation with someone who had been looking for a new position, and they changed the role on her. Literally was in her training stage, and then told her, you're not performing up to standards. He was like, well, what standards are they? Could you elaborate? Because that's not what I signed.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why the other part of your question is that I help companies figure out, wait, what's most important in this role, right? Especially when you look at more technical roles, because companies will tend to hone in on, well, we need these technical skills. Okay. But what about the culture that you're trying to cultivate and develop? And what personality is going to fit best into that culture and help drive it forward, right? I worked at Microsoft for 17 months and I would tell all of my developer engineer candidates, look, like, the culture fit is important, because if all we did was hire people with great technical skills, we'd have a bunch of buttheads who couldn't get along and they would never get anything done. Right. And so I help them decide, okay, are the technical skills truly the most important thing? Or can we get somebody who's 80-ish% of the way there, and you train and mentor and develop the other 20% while finding the best culture and personality fit for what you're trying to accomplish? right? And then once we figure that out, then we can set up your interview process so that when it comes time to have that debrief of who are we going to hire, we have all of the relevant information that we need to go to that scorecard and say, hey, this person is clearly the most qualified. These people aren't. And that makes your decision easy, because a lot of times companies are like, hey, we need you to go interview this person, but they don't give you any guidance. They don't give you any training. They don't say, hey, we need you to go evaluate this person on their technical fit or their personality fit or their culture fit. So you come back to do the review of the candidates, and it's like, yep, we don't really have the information that we need to make a decision, which is why you now see companies having 5, 6, 7, 8-step interview processes, because they don't really know what they're doing.
I'm so excited to get into our actual mastermind, but there's a couple more things I wanted to chat about before we get there. You talk about different industries, and it seems like you might have a heavy tech background. Does that kind of color your ability to work in other industries?
No, because honestly, tech is the hardest industry for a recruiter to really pick up. Probably aside from like doctors, because those guys are really, really hard. They tend to be not very nice people and they're really hard to get a hold of. So if you're working in that industry, you do kind of have to be more that headhunter mentality. You can't do what I typically do with my tech people and 5, 6 times and done. You might have to go after them 10, 15, 20 times before you get a response out of them. But when I learned tech, is like, oh, everything else comparatively is easy, because tech is not only, is it on your resume, but then do you actually have the skills to do the coding, to do the exercise, to do the troubleshooting, to prove to me that you actually have the skills that are on your resume, right? So I can do an initial vet on the tech skills and be like, great, so you have this many years of experience, but then they can get into the interview process and it turns out, well, your skills aren't as good as you said they were, right? So it's really more difficult. Whereas if I'm hiring an accountant, it's like, great, you have 10 years. Tell me about the clients that you've worked with, all of these kinds of things. And they're easier to vet on the front end after learning the tech, because it's like, because tech also is, wait, when I get a job, do these skills typically go together? Because when I first started in the contracting world, companies would try to often combine 2 roles into one. And so I started seeing tech stacks together that didn't belong. And it's like, wait, you're trying to combine 2 roles because that person doesn't exist. And so that's the other thing that I do on the front end with my clients, is I have the ability to go pull a talent market report based on the skills and experience that you tell me that you think you need, and come back to you and say, look, if this is the person that you truly think you need, there's 10 of them in the entire country. Because that's the other information that employers aren't getting on the front end is, wait, does this person actually exist? How many of them are there? And how much might it cost us to hire this person? So I provide all of that on the front end and say, look, if this is what you want, there's 10 people. Here's where they sit. This is about how much it's going to cost you. But if we take out those 3 to 5 nice haves that you think you need, now you have 100 people. And now we have a pool that we can actually work with and most likely pull someone out of. But 10 people, that's going to be a pretty hard ask if that's all that's in your market that you want to hire them in.
Interesting. I'm learning so much about the work you do, but also in thinking about the way that businesses operate, in listening to you. Matt, who's Matt Luensmann? Tell me a little bit about you personally. What makes you tick?
What makes me tick? Gosh, helping people, like I said, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. I've been in this space for, gosh, it's almost 8 years now, actually, closer to 8 than 7. And I'm, free of the corporate world. So I'm super excited to be able to work with who I want to, when I want to. It's allowed me to meet a lot of the wonderful people that are here today. I think I know half of you already. So, and just, gosh, I've been married for just over a year. My wife had 3 adopted kids when we met. So jumped right into the fire, and it's been a roller coaster for the last year.
Of the kids?
11, 10, and 5.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
Yeah. Monica, I see your face. Yeah, that's about how I feel. But they're awesome kids, but they're at that ages where it's like, do I get a single weekend in the entire year to myself to like do what dad wants to do? No, not usually.
Especially with the holidays coming. Are they just a little bundle of buzzy energy right now?
Yes, they'll be walking in my door in about 2 hours, and then I'm going to have to stop working and deal with them instead of being able to keep working today.
How fortunate you are to have the ability to construct a schedule that fits family first.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that is really important to you, right?
It's very important to me. Yeah, it's why I do what I do.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for being here, but also give you an opportunity if there are any last parting pieces of advice that you would like somebody to know, or if there's an offer that you have available that you'd like to direct people to. Now is your time.
Yeah. So I think, first thing, and we didn't cover this because I was saving it for now, is that, typically when people think of recruiters, they think, well, you're going to go find me the talent that I need, which is what most recruiters do. And I do that as well, but I also consult on everything recruiting. So if you or someone is like having issues finding the right people, getting them through your process, and you have kind of the symptoms of what's going on, but you can't figure out the root cause and solve it, call me. I can help with that as well. Or if you're like, man, we're about to start growing, but we don't have our processes in place and we don't know where to start, call me. I can help with that. Something I'm doing for Giving Tuesday next week is I offer a 60-minute consultation around what I was just discussing, where we talk about the issues that are going on in your process and brainstorm some solutions. And I'm giving away 4 of those for Giving Tuesday. So would love to help people with their recruiting processes. It's free of charge. I'm not going to try and sell you on the back end and say, now you have to hire me to consult and truly fix this for you. Just want to really give back to people that can take advantage of my expertise and provide that value for people, and point them in the right direction.
All right, so 2 questions. 1, describe Giving Tuesday. What is this for somebody who may not be aware of it? And then 2, how do they contact you for that Giving Tuesday?
Yeah, 100%. So Giving Tuesday, it comes after everybody's done their spending, but it's kind of that whole theme of, giving to charity, giving back to the community, or, the charity of your choice. And so I am a very strong believer in giving back. I love volunteering and helping people when I'm able to, which isn't very often right now, unfortunately. And there's a couple of different ways that you can get in touch with me. I'll put my information in the chat for those who are here. Otherwise, you can go to my website at mjlrnc.com and fill out the form, and I will be in touch with you within 24 hours to get that scheduled. Great.
Well, and for those of you that didn't catch that, that would be www.mjlr, and then written out ANDC.com. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you on the other side of this.
Awesome. Thanks, Isis.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Want to be our next featured speaker? Click the link in the description to register, and let's stay connected. Follow me on all those social media platforms for financial tips to help you make your money work smarter while you build financial stability. Stay tuned for more, and see you in the next one.